Okay, and we are live. Perfect. So welcome everybody. This is the last just a minute of the summer. So I am happy to be here, almost the end of the summer, and please do let me know if you can hear us, if you can see us, because we won't begin until we know you're there. So do give us a comment in the comments and let us know. Alternatively, if you are watching this on catch up on replay, give us a hashtag replay. Let me know that you are seeing it, and I can always come in and look at the comments and give a comment or two if you've got any questions. So yeah, give us a like, give us a comment, let me know that you're there, and then we can begin. As I said, it's the last just a minute of the summer, and it's been actually really great doing this. I was saying to you before, Peter, it's the first time I've got to meet a lot of our resource providers, so it's been really fun for me to put a face to the name of a lot of the products that I have on my bookshelf behind me, and hopefully has been useful for people of the 11+ journey as well to really put a face to the name. So I think people can hear us. I think we're good. And so absolute pleasure to have you on. Peter Francis, who I think many people know as kind of the non-VR man. So great to have you here.
Thanks very much. It's lovely to be on your last show. And yes, us resource providers, we tend to sit in dark rooms and don't talk to anyone for weeks on end. So it's lovely to be out in the big wide world.
to be actually seen by people, as opposed
I'm not sure about
that. As you often tutors are often here.
But, I was going to say, as you can tell by the promotional photograph you used, it's only a few weeks out of date, but not to worry.
Perfect. Well, Peter, you've seen on just a minute, and so you are hopefully ready to begin. As I said, as with all of our just a minute, really we take the rules very lightly. So I'm not going to be stopping you if you repeat yourself. I'm not going to be stopping you if you deviate. I do have a timer. It is in front of me. But ultimately, if you overrun, I'm not going to stop you. So unless you're going to go for a good 10 minutes, in which case I might butt in. All right. So our first question is, what is your product and who is it aimed at?
Right. Well, thanks for that question to start with. The product that I have produced is non-verbal reasoning practice tests, and they come in 3 forms. So there's a number of tests, 3 separate tests in pack 1. There are 3 separate tests in pack 2. Both of these are non-verbal reasoning tests, and the third pack is pack 3, which is a spatial reasoning test. And the reason for producing pack 3 ultimately was I got a lot of people asking about nets, and so I decided to create some tests. Each would have a section on nets, cube nets primarily, so that could be worked on. Who is it aimed at? It's aimed at students who are going to be taking the 11+, or earlier than that, who want to understand just roughly where they are in terms of the process.
Perfect. Look at that. And just in time. Brilliant. All right. So the next question I've got for you, what problem does it solve, or what is unique about it? Off you go.
So the problem it solves, there seems to be, there was a little while ago, a call for non-verbal reasoning items because there seems to be a voracious appetite for practicing non-verbal. So I thought, well, I produce work for GL, I produced work for Galore Park and others, so why don't I produce my own practice tests and put them out there so that there's more authentic material that students can practice with that will give them a clear indication of the kind of tests that they're going to be taking at the 11+. What is unique about it is the 30-year history I've had with GL assessment, and previous to that it was NFER Nelson, and working with them for that amount of time has given me a much clearer, focused understanding of what's involved. So it's kind of unique in the marketplace for that reason, I would suggest.
Perfect. And I will say, as a tutor, it's quite hard to get hold of non-verbal because it's not something you can write yourself. They're quite hard to write. Often with English or with math questions, I can kind of change them. I can change the numbers. You can't really do that with non-verbal. It requires drawing it out or being able to put it up on the computer. So it's definitely a gap that I know that a lot of us appreciated when it was filled.
Well, it's good of you to say so. Certainly, in the early days before I started developing them, I always thought they were created by people on strong narcotics in a dark room somewhere, and I just illustrated what they gave me. But actually, when you start to create them, not only is it great fun, but you get your head into it, and yeah, it's good to be able to do.
All right, next one's up there. How can your product help children, tutors and parents?
This is a multifaceted answer, so this might go to 1 minute 10 seconds. What it helps children do, of course, is understand where they are in the 11 plus non-verbal reasoning process. So it doesn't matter what year you're starting in, you can gauge an understanding as to how well you think logically straight off the bat. It can help you understand how good you are at spatial thinking straight away. What it also does is it will help children develop their logical thinking skills and spatial thinking skills. It's often thought that spatial reasoning is believed to be a native skill or an innate skill, and not everyone's got it. But you can practice it and you can get better at it, like anything. So that's where it can help children. Where it helps tutors is, as you rightly say, there's not a lot of material. It's tougher to create yourself. So if I talk to tutors about using the materials, and there's a number of tutors that buy my books and use them with the children, it helps them to, I suppose, give the best possible, in my view, one of the best possible resources for the children that they're tutoring.
Perfect. All right. Next one we've got is it 11 plus specific? Does it cover a broader area? And this is interesting for non-verbal reasoning because it's something that schools don't teach on the whole, and kind of does come up in other areas. I'm going to let you answer it. Off you go.
Well, it is a good question, and it's a sort of a tough one to answer because how broad an area does it cover? As I've said, it's a logical thinking process, and we use logic in our everyday lives, and organisations pay a lot of money for people to work for them who can think logically and solve problems. The materials that I produce go from beyond 11 plus. A lot of parents I speak to say, well, I can't do these things, they're so difficult, and they're aimed at what age? And so when you perhaps if you want to be a jet fighter pilot, you'll do spatial reasoning tests to understand whether you'll know and have the ability to learn what to do when you're flying around space. In space, you have to be able to manipulate, think of shapes, think of where you are in space, and be able to cope with it. So it is a broad area, and I showed a friend at the weekend a copy of the spatial reasoning book. He said, "Can I take this with me?" He said, "Because this will be good for me, and I want to show it to my dad because he could suffer from dementia because it's in the family, and this brain test." So we started talking about that, and it is a brain exercise. So I think it could be very useful in a lot of areas.
I know that when I did a bit of work in investment banking, audit and consulting, and they had similar tests in terms of that spatial awareness, spatial reasoning stuff. So it does appear, it appears other than 11 plus, it does appear in other areas. Okay. other resources that you would recommend? So,
not yours, it says in brackets. Well, I've made a note of a few resources that I would recommend. Galore Park commissioned me to write several books, but they also commissioned other authors that I know well to write some of the books as well. So I would always go to Galore Park to look at their materials. GL, of course, produce their own practice papers, and if you're going to take a GL exam, it makes sense to do the GL materials. I've worked with iEducate. I've worked with Sheena, of course. I mean, I guess kind of everyone recommends Sheena, right? So in terms of resources for English, Sheena's very, very good. I know a guy called Nick Sierra who's very good on the maths side. So there's a number of, I mean, I don't even need to mention you, do I, Gemma? Because that goes without saying. But yeah, so I think some of those publishers are very good. Those that have been around a long time and are well thought of, highly respected, so your CGPs and your Atom and Bond, they're all worth looking at. Because they're, as you rightly say, it's not taught in schools and there's so few resources. Try to get the best ones you possibly can, rather than just anything that's out there. Because one of my passions about this is to get the children confident enough to pass the 11 plus, of course, non-verbal reasoning being a part of it. And I think the difficulty is it knocks the confidence of the children if they're using resources that aren't thought out properly.
I know we've seen some in 11 plus journey that have multiple answers. That's always one that I think often you get tagged in. Where there might be two possible answers, or it doesn't seem like it's quite fits the pattern, and sometimes that's self-published, and yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah.
Right. Okay. What are your top tips for year 4, year 5, year 6? Could be all of them, could be one of them. Absolutely up to you. But when preparing for 11 plus, what would be your top tips for parents?
Right. Top tips for parents. I'm going to try and be a bit general and a bit broad about this, really, because I'm not a tutor. You will know better than I do and parents will know their own children better than anyone as to how to approach them. Some children need a bit of a firm hand with studying, and some need their arm around their shoulder. It all depends on the child. But my tips would be for non-verbal reasoning specifically, try to make it fun. I've got 3 children that all have used my non-verbal reasoning material. They review it for me sometimes, and they find it fun. And whenever I'm teaching, which is very rare, but if I do a presentation with children, they get involved and they love it. It's pictures, it's all visual, it's interpretation, it's logic, it's thinking. So get the confidence built up, encourage them all the time. Be realistic about the encouragement though. Don't say they can just do anything they want to. There's got to be realism so that they study hard for what they need to achieve. Pay attention to detail is one of the big things that I'm sure as tutors you all say. I certainly have said it all the time. Pay attention to detail. When it comes to the actual questions, do lots of nets type questions. And when you're doing that, process of elimination is always a good thing to, as part of the process of working out the solutions to the questions.
Yeah.
This is
1 in 2 chance. It is tough. A 1 in 2 chance is much better than a 1 in 5 is what I say to my students. So if you've eliminated down to 2, you've got a 1 in 2 chance, and sometimes timing wise it's important to get to that 1 in 2 and then guess and move on and circle come back. All right. This is an interesting one. What are you working on now? Can you tell us?
What I'm working on now is my own website. I've been promoting I'm very poor at marketing and promotion, to be quite honest. I'm a producer, not a marketeer. So I've been asked whether my material is available as an online test, and thus far it hasn't been, but I'm hoping that potentially by the end of September, my materials will be available on my own website, which will be passnvr.co.uk, and they'll be available in printed book form, as I showed earlier. They'll be available as PDF downloads if you want to print them out yourselves, and they'll be available online as an online test. And pretty much all of the questions will be available with explanations to the answers. Not all the spatial reasoning will be, because of course it's a mental activity, not a verbal activity. But it will be mostly the website is the primary thing that I'm working on now.
Perfect. All right. And then I think this is the last one. It is. So in the TV show, we always do a question about quiz shows, TV shows. Through the keyhole, the host goes around people's houses whilst the panel has to guess whose house that is. Which celebrity do you know so much that you would be able to guess their house?
Well, what an interesting question, Gemma. This is not something I've ever thought about. The final question I was hoping was going to be something like, what's your favorite color or your favorite band? If my wife were here right now, she'd be the one to answer this question, because she loves all the celebrity stuff. If she's talking to one of her friends, it will typically be about Love Island, The Only Way is Chelsea, or Up Your Essex, or whatever it's called. I don't know any celebrities that well that I think I could possibly guess their house.
There we are. So your wife would be the person to go on this show, not you.
She'd be the one. She'd be the one to ask. I mean, maybe someone like Max Whitlock. Is that his name? He's the gymnast. He'd probably have a few pommel horses around the place. That might be something I could guess. But other than that, I don't think there's any celebrities that I particularly know that well.
Okay, perfect. Your wife would be the person. All right. So that brings just a minute to an end. I have to say, in the comments, someone has specifically asked what would be the name. What is the name? Sorry, of your upcoming website? If you can just say that once more for us.
Nice of them to ask. Nice to ask. It won't be available for about 4 weeks, and it'll be www.passnvr.co.uk.
Perfect. So passnvr.co.uk. And in the meantime, if people are looking to get hold of your books, whereabouts should they go?
If people are kind enough to want to look at the books, I would suggest you go to Amazon and search Peter Francis Nonverbal Reasoning 11+, and a plethora of books will appear. Perfect.
And that is the main place that people can find you? Would be on Amazon?
They are right now.
Perfect. All right. That brings just a minute to a close, Peter. Thank you ever so much for being our last guest for this summer. We might resurrect it in another holiday time when I'm not tutoring. But thank you very much for coming on. Is there anything you want to say before you go?
No, it's been great fun. Thank you very much for asking me. It's been a great show as well. So I'm pleased to be the last in the series for now.
Perfect. And obviously, every time I come on here, I want to say thank you to Summer, who runs the 11+ journey along with all the admins. She lets me come on each week and do these, and it's meant that I've got to meet lots of 11+ resource providers, and hopefully the viewers of the 11+ journey have also been able to meet lots of resource providers who aren't necessarily always at the front of the chats on Facebook, but you ultimately are the ones who are providing all of the workbooks behind the scenes and really making sure that students achieve. So thank you. Thanks to all of the people who have been on Just a Minute, and also thank you to the 11+ journey. And of course, everyone who has watched us over the summer. All of the videos are available. They are in a folder. They're in our media tab on the 11+ journey. So you can go back and look at them and discover all of the resource providers who are brave enough to take on Just a Minute. Perfect. All right then. So what I'll do is I'll say bye-bye to everybody, and we will end Just a Minute. Bye-bye then.